Tapu, namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Kusak Mai Kiparu with another broadcast for you. And in this broadcast, I want to talk about how to position words to attract wealth. But before I get into that, I want you to hit the like button. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button and that bell to get notifications on when I go live or when I upload recorded videos. Lastly, if you're not a Patreon supporter, please consider becoming one. You can do so for as low as $1 or $20 per month, and you get access to exclusive content. And part of that content is a two-part series I did video on how to get $1 million, because we are going to be focusing on wealth building and prosperity. So that was a little clip from The Exorcist, an old movie, but a good one. I still get freaked out when I see her sticking her tongue out. It just really like unnerves me, you know? So I wanted to kind of cover this subject quickly to talk a little bit about this. In ancient cultures, we practice the art of possessing spirits, or be in the spirit of, as that term, you've probably heard that before. The one thing that really, really disturbs me is that I've been, every now and then I'll peruse the internet and watch other channels by other comedians or other spiritualists. And there was a woman I know, she had did some stuff and she was talking about a lot of conspiracy theories. She claims her channel is about spirituality, but all she really talks about is movies and conspiracy theories. But one of the things that I don't like is the fact when these individuals get to talking about things like possession, they always talk about it in a negative sense. For example, how the ruling elite is possessing, I guess, capturing people and getting them and using their bodies to possess them and all that. I want you to understand this very clearly, is that these individuals really tell themselves of how little knowledge they have of our culture, or little knowledge they have in terms of the technology behind all of this, because the act of possession was used in a very, very positive way by many, many cultures of antiquity. It's only in recent modern times, because the ruling elite has gone on a campaign to imprison the planet, and therefore they are making any non-Western religious traditions or technology, as I call it, to seem evil. Okay, to seem to be inspired work of the devil. So consequently, when you see these individuals who are conspiracy theorists, so-called spiritualists or comedians, talk about things like possession and talk about these ancient traditions or technology, they always reference it from the frame of being very negative. And I'm here to tell you that these things were very positive. I mean, we use these things in many, many different ways. And what I want to talk about is in line with gaining wealth. Let me reveal this big secret to individuals, which you probably should know. Many of the most wealthy people in modern day practice the occult. The way that they've gotten their wealth has been through the occult. In fact, if you were to spend time with them behind closed doors, you would see that they would perform occult rituals, and specifically two things. Number one, possession, and the other thing is communicating with past ancestors. Now, quantum mechanics, they talk about the 0-point energy field. What is that exactly? Well, let me try to explain that. I'm by no means an expert in that area, but I'll tell you that the universe does not discard information. Everything is stored, okay? And for example, when you pass on, the information of who you were, what you did, is stored within the Akashic records. Now, it is not stored there just to sit there, all right? It is supposed to be accessible, meaning you're supposed to be able to tap into that information and utilize that here. This is why it's as above, so below. This is why our ancestors practiced the communication with those who have passed on. And what you must also know is that there's only one consciousness. There is not individualized consciousness. So what that means, if, let's say, for example, if you have someone like a Steve Jobs or somebody pass on, the knowledge that he had is still accessible. It has not been dispersed. It's gone nowhere. It's still there. It still exists in the Akashic records. And those wealthy individuals know that all they need to do is to possess the spirit of Steve Jobs, possess that energy frequency, to tap into that and to enhance their knowledge. There's a book that I read some time ago, and actually it was in my library and I lost it. I couldn't find it, and I was just looking like crazy because it's a really good book. It's called Brain Magic. And this is by Philip Farber, and it really deals with NLP, but the majority of the book is dedicated to possession, or in the NLP term, they call it modeling. So what happens here is that they go through a lot of different examples of how you can possess the spirit of someone, the energy of that person. Why is this important? This is important because this is a technology that we have lost. You see, when we wanted to know something, we just didn't go to a university. We were able to tap into the wisdom of that figure. Whether it be, let's say, for example, we can say Benjamin Banneker, Mansa Musa, Howard Hughes. We would be able to tap into their spirit and then possess them, and then have their actions guide us toward success in business. You see, this whole scare tactic or fear-based programming, as you see in The Exorcist, and believe me, I love horror films. I love The Exorcist, one of the best horror films out there. But it's meant to steer you away. It's propaganda meant to steer you away from a legitimate practice, a legitimate technology that we came up with, so that the storehouse of information, the Akashic records, wouldn't just sit there, that you would have access to that. That when somebody who had a lot of knowledge would pass on, it would still be accessible. You see, we were able to reach the zenith of civilization in Kemet and Atlantis because we knew that when an individual died, that we could go into the duat and bring out from that a storehouse of knowledge. But unfortunately, in this society, when somebody passes on, one of our great individuals, it's just done. It's over and done with. But that's not true. Because if you accept the idea that there's only one consciousness, then you know that we are not individualized and that information still exists within the collective consciousness of us. So why can't we tap into it and utilize that through the act of possession? You see, it's okay for Christians to talk about possessing the Holy Ghost and do things like that, but when you're talking about possessing the spirit of a billionaire and trying to duplicate what him or her did for your own personal success, then things get shaky and they try to steer you away from that. Of course they're going to do that. There's a reason for that. They don't want an intelligent population, a population that's duplicating things. You see, every time we try to create a business or try to build a bridge or building, we're actually starting from scratch. We're reinventing the wheel every time. In ancient Kemet, they didn't do that. They did it there was a twofold process. Number one, for example, when that genius, for example, like Imhotep, would pass on, they knew that they would look for him to reincarnate. And when he reincarnated, they would identify him, which is the Tibetan Buddhists do this even today. That's how the next one is appointed. They would look for the individual reincarnate, and then he or she would pick up on the same subject matter and add to the storehouse of knowledge. The other point of it is just going into an alternate state of consciousness and possessing the energy, and then being able to pull that energy and pull that knowledge down and utilize that to help build this society. But again, we're living in this Western world, which wants to make anything that has to do with the right brain tapping into the right brain is to be feared that it has its origins in demonic practices. And they don't. For every time you see a movie that deals with something like The Exorcist, there are 1,000 more positive historical cases you can look at of people communicating with past ancestors, learning new skills, new knowledge. You can possess the knowledge of Da Vinci if you wanted to. You can be a Nikola Tesla. His energy is still out there and waiting for someone to pick up and complete his work. But we don't understand that. Now, one of the things I talk about in my program, if you don't have this video, I encourage you to become a Patreon supporter because it's there and it's available for those who are members of Patreon. So let me just actually play a little bit for you. So I want to explain something why you are inhibited from acquiring the wealth that you're looking for or having a life full of prosperity. And that's simply because you're standing in your own way. You know what I mean? Let me see what I can do here. Because we can be our own worst enemy, you know? Give me 1 second. Miss the mark because they don't touch on this next important principle, and this you must have as well. And we talk about the self versus the person or the persona. So what is the self? The self is your true self, the God within you. It knows all and it is in all places at once. It's multi-dimensional. It doesn't exist in any one place fixed in time and space. It's everywhere. It's unlimited in potential and connected to higher states. Next, you have your personal or your persona. It's an accumulation of thoughts and beliefs over time. It's created through social interactions or social engineering. It has fears and negative habits connected to lower states. And this is the beta state that you're in. Now, we call this conditioning or patterning. When you go through life and you start to pick up on things, and through repeated exposure, it builds a persona or a character, and that's who you become. It's not really who you are, because the true essence of who you are is the self. But you are under the thought process given by society, and it's false that you are the person. Now, for example, if I were to tell you, let's say you were raised in a family that told you that you couldn't do anything, that you were dumb, you weren't smart as everyone else, then when you got older, if I gave you a task to complete, more than likely you would believe you could not complete the task, no matter if it were easy. You would have some apprehension about it. Versus if you were raised young in a family that always gave you positive support and encouragement, then when I would place a task upon you, no matter how easy or difficult, you would probably have the expectation that you could complete it without a problem. See, this is the key ingredient on why people who get into the flow state don't manifest the things that they're looking for, because their persona is blocking the energy flow to access the flow state totally. So that's basically from my program, How to Get $1 Million. So what specifically I'm talking about there is that you've already built a persona. It is how you reference and see yourself. And many of us are financial geniuses. We know that we're limited in terms of, like, well, I don't know how to operate a business. I don't know if I can go any further. I don't know how to attract this type of wealth. And that's understandable. And you need to honor that belief, because that belief has been built over many, many years. And it could be due to social engineering, meaning that the subliminal influences that you're experiencing from society. It could be from where your parents brought you up. But the key thing that we have to do is that we have to set that persona or that person to the side. And then only then can we allow ourselves the energy to flow. And this is kind of what the 50th hexagram in the I Ching talks about, when it talks about turning over the cauldron to get everything out of the cauldron, because you've already accumulated a lot of negative stuff. And you have to get rid of that stuff before you can fill the cauldron up. So what I'm saying to you is, we knew that this technology about the act of possession was, hey, listen, I know that my person, the persona, doesn't have these abilities. It's not smart enough to do this. So what you need to do then is you need to think about, oh, I need to possess the spirit of this. And in so doing, I will gain that knowledge and I'll be able to move forward. And basically the energy will flow, and then I could attract the wealth that I'm looking for. Now, the process by which this happens is kind of slow and cumulative. So it takes time for your native personality to be set to the side, and for you now to invoke or come into the spirit of that thing that you want. And usually people get a lot of hangups on possession. So I do use the NLP term modeling, meaning that you're going to pick somebody, could be living or it could be passed away, who you thought was a business genius or a rich millionaire who you admired. And in so doing, then you would perform like a ritual to take on their persona or to possess that energy. But again, it would take some time for it to fully manifest. Now, there are different degrees of this, so let me explain. Now, when you start looking at the ruling elite and what they do, they actually almost eliminate the natal personality and allow the new adopted energy or spirit to come into you 100%. And in that case, then that is kind of dangerous, because who you truly are no longer exists, and you become that spirit. So what you're doing is you're making an agreement. You're making an agreement with that deceased individual, or even a spiritual entity, that you would serve as a vessel for them to come back into this fourth dimensional plane, with the agreement that they would, the spirit would bring you financial prosperity, or it would attract wealth to you and your family. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, I don't prescribe that you go 100% and allow an entity or a spirit or something to come in and totally possess you, because then that could just destroy your life, because you no longer as a person exists, and the spirit now inhabits your body and it won't leave, because you have spirits who are out there in the inner planes who want a body, who are waiting to reincarnate, or they can't reincarnate. So if you make that agreement, then they're happy as all heck. So, but what I'm saying is just, you coming into the spirit or the energy, not to the degree of 100%, but you're just like working with either the spirit or this figure 30% to gain a little bit of knowledge, but you're still in possession of your faculties and you can still control your body and do the things that you need to do. It's just a matter of that you want the knowledge of how they became a success, how they acquired their riches. You want that knowledge. In order to get that, then you have to a degree, allow them to come into you to form that kind of communion, so you can download the information from the Akashic records and start putting that information into practical use. All right. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Again, what I'm saying is that we have made it seem so spooky, so fearful of allowing these things to come into us and to guide our actions and to work with these things, that we have lost our way and we're taking the hard route. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I'm just going to, work hard, and hopefully the harder I work, the more I'll make. And that's not necessarily true. You have to work smarter, not harder. All right. You know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is that, again, if you were to go behind the curtain and you would see some of those wealthiest people in the world, they're involved in these occult practices. Do you think they just came into money? Do you think they just invented something that just happened like that? It's not that. No, it's not. And you will be surprised at your Wall Street executives, at your rich billionaires, at your CEO. They are either heavily into astrology or occult practices. Eyes Wide Shut is a good movie that really exposes this, that talks about this. When Tom Cruise stumbles across a secret society and realizes that these wealthy, influential people are really immersed in the occult. You know what I mean? Now, the thing that you can do is you can start working mind over matter. Yes, exactly. It is from Napoleon Hill. That's right. Napoleon Hill practiced this, in many ways, calling it a mastermind, possessing the energy of those individuals. So it's a practical technique that you can apply and use. And one of the things is what really helps is that the individual that you're modeling after, that you really admire them, that you want to live like them, you want to be like them. You know what I mean? To the point of almost you becoming fanatical about it. And that really opens the psychic gateways to allow that energy to come to you. And then you will start to get inspiration. You'll start to get knowledge. And more importantly, what will happen and what is great is that you will see synchronicities happen, because when this energy comes into you and you allow it to flow, the energy will start to align right people for you, like investors. It'll start to set up opportunities for you. Now, what's the easy route? What's the best way to go? You trying to build a book of contacts or a Rolodex of contacts, or you possessing the energy and allowing that energy to set you up with opportunities and clients. That's the way you should try to look at it, in that way. But now what I'm saying is that does take time, because energy, when it comes into you, is just not going to hit you like that. And then all of a sudden you'll possess all this knowledge and wisdom. That's not the way it works. There are safeguards to your spirit so that no other floating entity out there can just jump inside you. You know what I mean? So that's why I say it may take time for you to get to that degree of where the energy fully comes to you and guides you and gives you the knowledge that you need to get to where you need to go. All right. And I remember when I was I was trying to get a film financed, and I actually started practicing this technique. It took me about, I think it was like 4 months. The minimum was 4 months to really possess that spirit, to where I could go make the presentations, where suddenly they went from one point of where me out there, pounding the pavement, trying to find investors, to suddenly, after I possessed the energy and the vibration was flowing, where people started to come to me and opportunities started to line up, one thing after another, then one thing after another. And that's what we call is getting in like the flow state, where things seem to be just flowing and things going your way. So I want you to think about that. Think about those techniques, because again, this is going and referencing our culture, something that we always practice. But unfortunately, there are those individuals out there who are kind of like talking about things they know nothing about. And all they're doing is spreading propaganda, lies, and making you fear this technology, making you fear this knowledge, when you should be embracing it. All right. And you'll find that it really enhances your knowledge. In fact, there is an entire book that was published by Francis Bardon, which talks about the different genii or spirits that govern certain skills, that when you possess them, it's a practice of magical evocation. When you possess them, then you will gain that knowledge in that particular area. This is done all the time by the top ruling elite, all the time. There's no reason why we shouldn't be duplicating this. But again, we live in a society where the top levels of information, the high levels of education, higher knowledge, occult-based knowledge is hidden and tucked away. And what we're doing is so primitive. Opening books, reading books. Nothing wrong essentially with reading a book, but the knowledge already exists. It's out there in the Akashic Records. We just need to download it. And they know it exists, because what they're doing is they're uploading information that's detrimental to you, because they want society to act in a very wayward, backward way. And they allow you to download those things, which gets you to be doing some crazy stuff, people going and shooting up churches, people just acting all crazy because they've uploaded these ideas to get people to act in this way. In the same vein, you can get people to act in a very spiritual, knowledgeable, wise way. Now, one last thing I want to touch on is that one of the things that really can get you to tap into that source of wisdom and knowledge is rhythm. When you are operating at a certain rhythm, it becomes a frequency that opens the gateway to that energy. This is why when you see a lot of rappers, that the music in the rap industry is used to basically retard the progress of people, to basically get you operating at a very low frequency, because they know that, see, the mass of these rappers that you see who are famous, who are well known now, really come out of ancient Kemet and other civilizations, and they practiced those way back when, and they've been reincarnated, and they're just picking up and doing those things over again. That's how they're accessing that knowledge that they left off, and picking it up and doing it again. But now, because the establishment, the ruling elite, knows this, they make sure that these individuals don't stumble back onto the rhythm, the frequency, that if they were to put it out there on a global level, it would get people to start acting very spiritual. It would increase the intelligence of the population. So they know this. So what they do is that they work with these artists to keep them in a lower animalistic based energy, because they don't want these individuals stumbling back on to the ancient practice and figuring that frequency out. They have to keep that part of the knowledge of music away from them, because you are going to have one that will come out there and realize, if I just set this rhythm here and work with these beats here, it has a profound change in the way people act. They start to act more in agreement with each other. They start to act more harmoniously. So the industry says, no, don't talk about that. Talk about bitches more. Talk about bitches. Talk about money. Talk about drugs. Talk about how you want to do another guy up the butt. This is what they do. This is why in ancient cultures we had the goddess Hedaru, who governed music and art. And these music and art was intertwined with the other aspects of science. It wasn't a separate field known as art. It was connected to astronomy. It was connected to mathematics. It was all woven in there. Because if you really look at it, if you hit that right frequency, you could become a math genius. This is why you'll see a very controlled way the system has over the music industry and in the film industry. Mike, yes, absolutely. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That's where you get people say you get your savants from. You're like your Nikolai Tesla. They come out of nowhere and they say, well, they have a natural ability. They've simply tuned into that frequency without even knowing that they have. So yeah, think about that. Michael, let me just touch on what you just said there. Life improves using technology. Life transforms completely when you access spiritual and mental technology. That is true. That is true. But one thing it does too, it creates harmony. So an example, if you look at technology today, it improves the quality of your life, but it creates more problems. You have nuclear waste. You understand what I mean? They create this technology, which just helps us, but then the end result is it makes things more difficult. Like, for example, they will say, Well, fluoride strengthens the bones and you strengthens your teeth and all that. But then again, it also has a damaging effect on your third eye. You know what I mean? So look what it does. So, but anyway, yeah, just touching upon that, what we did, because we are right brain thinkers, is that we were able to create a technology. And in doing so, it didn't violate any other aspects. Everything was in harmony and in agreement. This is why you'll have the pharmaceutical industry, they'll come out with a drug and have all these side effects that could actually kill you. So you have to ask the question, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to just suppress the symptoms or really get rid of the cause? You have to ask that question. But it's really coming from a left brain linear perspective, to where they don't know how to get to the root of the matter. They don't know how to create that harmony. They don't know how to come up with a concoction or a medicine that will not kill you, or kill one person in 1,000, because that's how the side effects work. It helps the masses, but there's always that one person it can have a detrimental effect upon. So we have to get to that point. And that was really the things that were good about our culture, and cultures like the Chinese culture, and all of the other ancient cultures. So I want you to really think about that. And music also too is a great way to access those spiritual entities and to bring them into you. Now, one of the things you have to realize, if you're concerned about attracting negative entity, you usually don't attract them, because if you're operating on that frequency. So if you're a negative person, then yes, you can attract a negative entity that may come in and try to make an agreement with you so they can use your body as a host. But if you're not operating on that frequency, they won't be attracted to you. So you don't have to worry about that. So anyway, I just wanted to touch upon that so we can take a different perspective on looking at how to attract wealth into our lives by tuning into those frequencies. And as I said before, Francis Barton's book, The Practice of Magical Evocation, does go over certain genii that can attract wealth to you, that can attract love to you, that can make you well known in the music industry or in the film industry, things like that, if you start to work with them. But in working with them, it's not easy. It's a challenging thing, and it takes patience to get these spirits or these genii's attention. And there's a whole elaborate ritual around how to do it. All right. This is why I take a little bit of an easier route to that by using NLP, which uses the technique of modeling. All right. And not going the full-blown possession route, because it is more involved. But also, even though it's more involved, the benefits are greater than doing the NLP technique, which is modeling. So as I remember I was telling you about before, you get a piece of the knowledge of that person or a spirit, like 30%. But when you start doing the full-blown ritual and all that, you get a real chunk of the wealth of knowledge of that person. And you can start to operate from there. And many times, you will realize if you're working and doing it correctly, you will lose awareness of what's going on in your life, because your consciousness or who you are takes that back seat, and that spirit or that person now is at the forefront and they're doing everything. But that's the agreement you make with them. And you also have to make the agreement that they have to leave or get purged, because they're not to use your body on a permanent basis. Okay. Let me just answer Clifton's question. So your incarnation objective Heteru, does that mean I'm supposed to be in the music industry? No, that's a career reading. That's a separate total reading. And Heteru can come off with different meanings. It could mean that you need to be more joyful, and it could mean that you need to know how to work with people more harmoniously, because that's a key to her. It could also mean that you must learn how to be more affectionate, how to be loving. So there's a lot of different things that reading can be talking about, because the deities possess many, many qualities, and you have to see which quality is it referring to. For example, Ma'at talks about unrequited love, and Heteru does talk about love too, but it's a different type of love. You know what I mean? So Ma'at's love is cold. It's giving, not seeking anything in return. Heteru's love is, I'm going to give to you, but you better give back to me for this damn thing to work. So keep that in mind. Anyway, so I want to thank you Magi, for attending today. I wanted to be a quick broadcast to give you that idea. This is Kasak Ma'a Keperu. My mother is the goddess Ma'at, And my aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru, Hathor. She has the horns and the sun disk. And in some of the next broadcast, I'm just kidding around. Some of the next broadcast, thank you and Amun Ra.